Ready? Ready? Good evening. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, July 24th, 2020. This is a special meeting of the governing body of the city of Spring Hill, Kansas. Our first order of business will be our call to order and roll call. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Leeton,
Here.
Mr. Owen,
Here.
Mr. Graves,
Here.
Mr. Eckert,
Here.
Mrs. Hughes. Here. Mayor, we have a quorum present.
Thank you very much. Prior to opening the public hearing, I'll ask Mr. Hendershot to introduce the issue. Mr. Hendershot, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. This evening is the public hearing for the 2021 operating budget. I've got just a few slides that I'll go through very quickly to kind of introduce where we're at and where we've been to get to this point. And then Ms. Landis and I are both available for questions should there be any to come our way. And we're on. There we go. Nope. There we go. As you're aware, we are in a biennial budget. This would be for tonight is for the adoption or the public hearing for the future adoption of the 2021 budget and a conditional approval for the 2022. And you can see as we've been tracking through all of our meetings that we are now in the phase 4 of the 4-phase process for the budget adoption. And keeping in line, as we always have, with the goals of transparency, budget and financial planning, infrastructure, development, and quality of life is a lot of the goals of this budget. The purpose of tonight is to have that hearing for the 2021 budget, and again, have that opportunity for the public to make comments. It is required as part of the approval process for the state budget. And it also offers an opportunity for the public to make comments on the 2022 budget, as well as we'll have a brief overview of the capital improvement program. This slide simply shows where we were last year with total valuations and broken down into fire and no fire as well as Miami County. And you can see that total valuation, we're at 10.21% increase over 2019, and then the breakdowns in the particular areas there. And pending exemptions, those would be for IRBs, et cetera, that are on the books. This is the budget summary that was published as required, showing a relatively steady mill levy as estimated rate as compared to 2019 and 2020, and this was published as required. There are some challenges in this 2021 budget. There are conservative revenue forecasts built into it and how that will affect the carryover from 20 into 21. There are continued hiring freezes for 2 positions, as well as deferral of some budget requests to 2023. What this budget does accomplish is personnel, 1 police officer and 3 temporary street laborers. It maintains current city services to the public. It supports increased street maintenance material, technology, security, and equipment purchases and personnel merit and benefit costs. And it supports outside agency funding for those groups that came before you folks at a previous meeting. The challenges for 22 are a little different. Their carryover estimated is at 0. All of the budget requests for 22 look to be as if they'll be deferred into 2023, and it does not provide any funding for personnel merit or benefit increases. What the 2022 preliminary budget does do is maintains those city services, supports new personnel addition for 21, and returns those frozen positions back to hiring status, and again supports those existing outside agency funding requests. From a CIP standpoint, and there's a lot going on this slide, this shows the 2021 projects. estimated cost as well as potential funding sources, the broadband connection, Spring Hill Lake Dam, 191st improvement, Lone Elm to Theden, building improvements for salt and sand structure, design of Hale Street improvements, design of the 223rd and Webster, continued progress on Lincoln Street improvements, as well as some other projects on Lone Elm. Webster Street rehab is here, identified potential funding grants or sources as cars and excise tax, lagoon rehabilitation, and then some wastewater projects for a lift station, flood mitigation, and replacement of a roof structure at the wastewater treatment plant. And those associated estimated costs. Obviously, all of those projects would come back to you folks prior to any type of approval moving forward. From a budget calendar standpoint, of a series of 10 meetings, we are in meeting number 9 at the public hearing phase. And with that, Mayor, unless there are questions, I'll yield the floor back.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and for the 2021 budget, Mr. Peterman has signed up. Mr. Peterman, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, and then you will have the council's attention.
Bill Peterman, 19431 West 200th Street. I've just got a couple things that I want the council to think about before they do vote on any of these things. I didn't see any miscellaneous in there, so that's good. Last time we had budgets, there was a lot of miscellaneous, and so I didn't see any miscellaneous. That was kind of nice to see that. The biggest thing that I do see is right now we have towns, cities, major businesses, even universities that are doing 3 things. They are furloughing people, or 2, they can work, or they'll be able to come back. They're firing people so that they won't be coming back, and they're taking pay cuts. And I don't know that I've seen a pay cut in there, or even saying straight across. I just hate to see the money being spent that we don't have. That's what I'm kind of after. I just don't. I don't see everybody else is suffering through this, but we're going to be on the upside, and everything's going good. And I don't know. I want you to think about that though before when you're voting on this stuff.
Mr. Peterman, all of those tools are still in the toolbox. We're spending money that we assume that we will have, and that's after a very conservative reduction being taken for what we anticipate to be loss of sales tax revenue, as well as deferred payment of property taxes. So we already took a significant reduction in the budget, assuming that some of those impacts will present themselves. Furloughs, voluntary first. At our last meeting, I had instructed Mr. Hendershot to work with our Human Resources Director, Monikisha Jones, to find out what employees may be willing to consider a voluntary furlough. So if we get to that point, we know who, if anyone, would take a voluntary, and that will help us to plan if we need to do mandated furloughs. All of those tools are still available in the toolbox.
Okay.
We are not borrowing any money to meet this budget. This budget is based upon anticipated revenues, and if those revenues fall short, then we have to take other, perhaps more draconian measures to ensure that our budget is balanced.
So we're not going to be borrowing to save this budget.
Correct.
Okay, that's my biggest thing that I was worried about.
Very good.
Because I don't want to see us getting to 3 more mil on our taxes.
We've not had a mill levy increase since at least 2006, and there's actually been a 1 mil reduction.
Job to do that.
We have worked really hard to maintain that static mill levy as best as we can.
But I
again,
will
those
say
tools are
this.
still available.
Our officers on the street, I hate to see them take any pay cuts. Because I watched last night in New York City where they're throwing water on them, doing things that, to aggravate them. Those guys have a target on their back that the public has put on them nationwide. And I don't think they need, the ones in the street though, I'm talking about, we don't need to be cutting their pay.
Okay.
That's my opinion on that.
All right, thank you very much, and the floor remains open. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and of course, we are accepting public comment on the proposed 2022 budget and 21 to 25 capital improvement program. Prior to entertaining comments there, I just want to reiterate that that 22 budget is not set in stone, but rather it's a guideline for us for 22. And dependent upon what the financial circumstances of the city are as we get closer to that time will help us to determine what adjustments we may need to make to that budget. Obviously, we are all hopeful that the estimates that we have are wrong. I have never more hoped, Ms. Landis, for you to be wrong than I am right now. I appreciate that early on when we had discussions about the budget and setting a low, medium, high, we put some science into how we felt our budget might be impacted. So I hope that offers some confidence in everyone that we believe that we're close or that we are overestimating the impact. Time will tell. So, public comment on the 2022 budget and 21 to 25 capital improvement program. Any council comments?
The only comment I'm gonna make is I don't think since I've been on council, we've ever carried any debt to cover any shortfalls for anything, have we?
I don't believe we're allowed to.
And we're not allowed to either. So that is just something that has not occurred and can occur. So-
Am I correct that we cannot borrow money in order to balance our budget?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, for general operating funds.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Well, I think our spending plan that we discussed last week, I think is a good thing to keep going. And as you requested it to be a monthly item, I think that's going to help us with this budget going forward with the one we're in and our future one by allowing us all to stay on top of the spending we have, that we can put off what we can or eliminate if we need to.
Correct. Very good. And that's why we instituted some of those early on, including the suspension of some positions, the hiring of some positions. This year, though, we are going to need to talk about the hiring of a public works director. So we are going to need to have that conversation. That is a director level position. That group needs and deserves to have some leadership. Not that Mr. Hendershot isn't providing that oversight right now, but there's some serious day-to-day. When we look at how we are using the money that we have available and not backfilling some of those street positions so that we can use that money to hire day labor, what we're talking about is taking the 3 people that we have and having them superintend jobs. So somewhere along the way, we need somebody to be able to manage that process. Right now, I think they're doing a good job as a largely self-directed work group, but I think sooner rather than later, we're going to need to have that discussion.
I wouldn't mind if we could. Don't know how it works. Is maybe since we have enough shortage with personnel that we've done the hiring freeze, would this be a good time for the governing body to get together and review all the positions we have? And either reorganize or look at, can we organize, can we do something better for the people to help us get these positions filled in the correct way?
And that's certainly something that we can look at, but
Yeah.
the organization below director level belongs to Mr. Henderson. So, all right, very good. Hearing nothing else, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.